it's been fun because we're all on our own journeys, right? We're all, figuring out consciousness, figuring out whatever level we are, we're figuring out kind of what's next. And the smoke trail is really it's the smoke trail, which is like it's my journey, but it's me inviting other guests who are on their journeys, and it's like let's have a conversation around what we're learning, what we're seeing, what knowledge we bring, and what works. I'm all about what works.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. So let's do it, man. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks for having me, by the way.
welcome, Dr. Jerry. I'm super excited to have you as a guest. We've become friends recently. I got to experience the RASHA machine in Vegas and go into the dome and had a really cool experience. And I think we hit it off in person. And I thought right away, like I'd love to get you talking about this. I know you've got your own podcast. We'll publish all that stuff in the show notes, but I've listened to some of the episodes and really, really interesting stuff. So, first of all, welcome to the Smoke Trail, and thanks for taking some time to share some of your knowledge with me and with
No,
our audience.
thanks for having me, Smoke. Yeah. Let's do
And
this.
good deal. Well, all right. So now are you in Vegas today, or are you we're somewhere
I
else in the world?
am,
I know you
yes,
travel a lot.
yes. I'm in Vegas currently. Yes.
All right, so we got the West Coast covered. I'm in Sedona,
hmm
and uh, and we're gonna talk about a few things. I know you've got your foundation out in the Philippines,
hmm
which is cool, and love to hear a little bit about what your mission is and what you guys are doing there. And I know your mom's real involved in that, which is cool. Uh,
Yeah.
and but let's start out with, I mean, maybe we can give a little bit of background, right?
hmm
Um, I want to talk about the Rasha. I want to talk about the scalar and the 12 the I'm saying it wrong, but 12 base frequencies and how that's different from a lot of the stuff that's mechanical here on that we're used to. But how did get started? I mean, what brought you down this path? I think that would be really interesting to kind of foundationally just, you didn't wake up as a child and say, I am going to invent the Rasha. I don't think. Did you?
No, no, no. As a child, I did want to be, if you'd asked me at 9 what I wanted to be, it was an astronaut, right?
Oh,
So,
dude, you, me, and my last guest too. Like
yeah,
we,
right?
yeah,
So, and as children, we're always as children we can tap into certain things, right? Certain knowledge, and we're not filtered from, let's say 13 on, right? How we're like programmed for, whatever people want us to be like in society. So at an early age, I was pretty open to, the endless possibilities of what we can do as humans. However, let's say in 2000, right, September of 2000, I actually suffered a massive heart attack, right, due to a drug overdose. And in that moment, well, actually, in that experience, because it's really no time, but
yeah,
in that experience, Smoke, I was able to, let's say, experience our true nature, which is consciousness, or you can say energy.
yeah,
And that's where my life just pivoted. Because prior to that, I wasn't into spirituality. I wasn't into anything science related, right? I come from a family of surgeons and doctors from the New York, New Jersey area. And I was, put on a track where, oh, go to pre-med school and let's become a doctor. But, you know, um, pre-med wasn't for me. I knew that I felt deep in my core that something was off with the current Western medical model. And I'm not saying it doesn't have its uses, right? But I knew back then that that wasn't for me. So, that's how it really started, right? And that everyone asks me, how was the near death experience? Oh, it was an outer body, like my consciousness came out. So I had what they call an OBE, an outer body experience.
Uh,
And then as I was looking at my body um, from about maybe 2 to 3 feet, 45 degrees above my head, I had 360-degree awareness smoke. And the moment I asked the internal question, well, who am I? Because I saw my body lifeless, right? I was immediately uploaded from this reality to what I call, let's say, the universal source code or God, if you will, spirit, divine, whatever you want to label it. I call it the source consciousness field, unified field.
yeah,
But in that space, you know everything. You know, when they say when you die, and unfortunately everyone will, they come to learn the truth of everything they wanted to know. And that is absolutely uh, possible and true. So
yeah,
that's how it
that's
all started.
amazing. I love that. One of my guests called it cosmic heart. I like that one. But there's lots of names for what this universal consciousness is.
Mhm.
I am uh, learning all about it as I go along with my journey, and I do understand. There's now been just so many people who have had near-death experiences that have come back and told a similar story, right? Experienced something like that of some sort.
Mhm.
One of the problem or one of the challenges we have in this realm is and it's by design, we don't remember, right? So we're spiritual beings. We are born into these physical bodies, and we are our memory of being a spiritual being is kind of blotted out, and maybe we have bits and pieces as children, but then it kind of gets tamped down. So when you did that, I think I think a lot of the experiences that I've observed or I've been relayed have been they could see the all, they saw love, they saw this, and then they went back and they remembered that part, but they didn't remember a lot of specifics.
Mhm.
But I think you came back with specific memories, or at least you opened a channel where you could bring information from that bigger consciousness into this realm. So maybe you want to comment on that, or tell me a little bit about that part. Like, how do you remember things?
Right. Right. That's a great question. You know, prior to that event, I call it an event, I didn't have any belief systems and filters, right? Because your belief system sets your filters, right? And then that sets what you experience in this reality as well as when you leave this 3D physical plane. So the belief system, say if you're Muslim or you're Buddhist or you're Catholic, if that's your belief system, those filters are what you're going to experience when you leave this physical realm, right?
So we're all going to
So
say, I was right.
yeah, but the thing is, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have
Right.
any filters. I didn't expect to see Buddha or Jesus or angels or any of that. That wasn't in my DNA. So in a way, that actually allowed me to experience, reality as it truly is in terms of multidimensional framework, right? Which is all about consciousness and energy, right? So I was lucky, I'd say, that I was able to just experience the awe of the at one ment, okay?
Yeah.
Because, and I understand people when they say they experience or they see love, right? But, that's a matter of definition and what love is to each and every individual, right? Because love is not an emotion. Love is the vibrational resonance of, you know, a being with the all oneness, right? So it's actually a vibrational oscillation resonance, right? Of either one or two beings or the whole entire cosmos, right? It's actually a feel sense rather than, an emotion.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to experience, our true nature, which is energy, but not just energy, because energy is thrown around like, it's a word that's just been, I'd say abused, right? I'm talking about scalar morphogenetic energy, which is the I would say the foundation, the parent of light and sound, of electrical and magnetic, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's really
scalar, yeah,
the unmanifest, right? It's the substrate of what all of our reality is created from.
correct.
Okay.
Absolutely well said.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah.
what it resonates with me because when I went through I've gone through, my journey of awakening and becoming an understanding consciousness and trying to understand it more. One of the things that I lacked was a strong tradition. I didn't grow up in a religious family. In fact, in some ways, religion was a aversion because of some of the things I experienced as a child. But I didn't have a lot of programming. And so when I started down this thing, I was like, "Whoa, what? Really? It's all this other stuff." And I had this like big awakening, but I wasn't dogmatic about anything. So I decided to kind of do my own research, right? So I read the Dhammapada, I read the Upanishads, I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read the Christian mystics. I've sourced things from all, and lots of sources. But I kind of looked at them with a neutral lens. Like, what are they saying that's in common? What are they saying that, clearly a lot of that stuff was written in a different age, with different languages, with different translations, with lots of cultural layers, right? And human ego minds that have gotten involved in if you and I could interview the Buddha or Jesus Christ, we would have a different transmission than what these filters that have gone into the transcripts and the all the scripture and everything, that it's been altered to some degree, but there's a core teaching that I have found across them all, which is like, okay, but because I came with that less of a burden of a paradigm, I think I've been able to absorb it differently than some others. So that resonates with me. The fact that you had that experience and you didn't have this really strong ingrained programmed expectation that you're going to see angels or you're going to see this or that lets you just see what is.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
absolutely. So,
I just put in my words in my frame, but it's really cool. So you got to see the substrate, you got to see the scalar substrate of reality, and then how did that come back? Like when you came back to your physical form,
mhm,
no longer a floating spirit or whatever you were,
mhm,
consciousness in general. How did that translate to like, okay, you woke up and you're like, okay, I just had this incredible experience.
mhm.
What do I do with it? What do I remember? How does it
Right.
manifest into this realm?
So think of it, your viewers can think of it as an upgrade, when you do software upgrades on your computer or your phone, right? The firmware has to upgrade and you get new software, new firmware. So that's really what happened, right? It was an upgrade of my prior software, right? And that's how when I was back in my physical body, I didn't come in with the information per se. Think of it as, a Dropbox where you have those files, right? Because the information came in very, very high, I would say, oscillating data. Because we live in 3D, right? When you go into the higher dimensions, the energy doesn't become higher in vibration because that's erroneous. Vibration is energy contraction, energy holding, which means it's denser. It's more higher oscillating frequency
Right,
smoke. So this physical body was not able to let's say uh, handle or let's say hold that high oscillating frequency. Otherwise, I
yeah,
would have spontaneously combusted, right? And
right,
humans throughout history have just spontaneously combusted.
yeah,
Usually, I mean, I would say almost 99.9% of humans that have spontaneously combusted has to do with, energy. higher oscillating energy, trying to anchor into the physical, right, atomic, and it just won't,
Yeah.
the body won't handle it. So I came back with, let's just say, Dropbox files, right? So as I, similar to you, when I came back, I had a different perspective. I knew things that I didn't know prior to dying, and I did like what you did. I did my due diligence. I researched. I studied every single esoteric base of knowledge. Not only that, I even went into, sciences and seeing which one, was right and which one came closer to the truth. And like you said, and at the core of every teaching, it's pretty much the same. It's love based, but it's the humans that with their filters that created these different paradigms to say, oh, this is different because we believe this, and we're better than you and all that stuff, right?
That was
But
always the followers, not the avatar, right?
correct, correct,
So like Jesus didn't say, make a religion out of me. He said, he preached love. He preached what he preached. The Buddha didn't say make a religion out of me and make statues of me all over the world. He said, be a Buddha, do this, do these things, live right, do these things. And so those filters are absolutely distorting the original avatar's teachings.
right, right. And I'm pretty sure, Buddha and Jesus today wouldn't be too happy about what their name became. And it was like, you, right? Smoke. If you stand for something, you're doing your service to humanity, and 1,000 years from now, right? You come back and you look at humanity, and they built a statue of smoke, right? Like, praising you. That's not what you created. That's not what you were standing for, right? I mean, if I were Buddha and Jesus, I wouldn't be too happy, to
Yeah.
be honest with you.
I would say Buddhism has departed less than any of the other religions from its core teachings. So it's probably maintained a certain level of calibration. I'm a big fan of David R. Hawkins and his work with power versus force, and he calibrated all this stuff using kinesiology testing, and
Hmm.
Buddhism tests still at a very high level compared to the other religions from the original teachings. All the original teachings calibrate at a very high level.
Hmm.
So it's interesting for sure. And one thing about the oscillating, I think this is confusing to people because I think you said a really important thing. High higher vibration isn't higher, it's faster oscillating vibrations. It's almost like the movie Interstellar. Remember that movie?
Yeah, of course.
Great movie, right? And
Yeah,
remember when he had a dock with the broken spaceship and it was spinning and he had to match the oscillation to dock.
correct. Hmm.
So and I think of it in meditation, it's a little bit like the calmer, the more we can settle our gross energies of thought, mind, emotions, the grosser energies, as we get control of that, we get calmer. And as we get calmer, our oscillations are actually going up. And that's how we access higher consciousness.
Well, no, that's you hit it right on the head, right? And it's not humanity's fault that they were not taught what the difference between vibration and oscillation. It just is, right? And we were taught that, oh, okay, the higher vibration, that means it's higher in consciousness. That's erroneous. Now, it's not wrong. It's just you're missing a huge part of the equation,
Yeah.
right? So, in other words, now look, respectfully, I've studied Hawkins. I read his book. I studied his scale. But when you look at his scale and it's based on vibratory, on vibrations, right? It's not based on oscillation. If you, Smoke, were to insert oscillation into that equation, then you birth a new scale of consciousness that is more in line with reality as it is, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't need to debate Hawkins, but I would say that I'm not sure he does that because what he does is he calibrates it based on muscle testing, right? Kinesiology, right? So he basically just and the numbers were so big, it was like, okay, this has to be a log 10 scale.
Mhm.
He doesn't actually say what it is. Like, there's not really a definition of what it is. It's probably measuring oscillations, is my assertion. It's actually
Mhm.
measuring what you're talking about.
Mhm.
But he never talks about whether it's vibration or oscillation or anything like that. He just talks about the measures he got. So
Mhm.
anyway, there's probably
Right.
that's a really maybe an interesting conversation for us at some point. But either way, I think I think the point about it, it's not a misnomer, as you say, it's right, but it's a misunderstanding of what that means.
Yeah.
So higher
So,
energy levels is really higher oscillation levels. It's the speed of the oscillation, right?
right.
And
Right.
you can't see it if you're oscillating at a lower level. It's like, we can't see, there's a lot of there, our visual spectrum is like this compared to like all the things that that we know is out there. And they're still here. They're around us. They're everywhere. We can't perceive it with our normal five senses because we only are able to perceive that certain level of oscillation.
Correct. Right. And we have much more than just five senses, right? So if people wanted to access those, let's say, higher sensory perceptions, you're going to need to balance out the vibratory versus the oscillation and have them come into, let's say, that 0 point, right?
Yeah,
That's the key. But yeah,
love
cool.
that. All right, so you had the Dropbox of files,
Yep.
and you did your deep dive researching everything. And
Mhm.
as you did that, you were started to be able to unlock those files.
Correct. It took years though. It didn't
Yeah,
happen overnight,
yeah,
as you know. It took many years to prepare my physical body to even remotely start extrapolating and extracting that information because it was too too really very powerful, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
And then then you were able to start extracting them, and
Mhm.
I'm imagining that it didn't all happen at once. That they started to come to you, you started to understand them, and then how did you turn that into actionable things?
Mhm.
It's one thing having an understanding; it's another thing doing what you've done, which is you've actually created the Rasha
Mhm.
system, the where you've unlocked these frequencies and you can actually transmit them to people. So how
Mhm.
did that, from understanding go to now I can turn this into something that people can utilize?
Right. It comes back to remembering why I agreed to birthing on this planet. It comes
Yeah,
back to your avatar contract, if you will, right?
yeah,
And most people, unfortunately don't remember why they came here, right? They just figure, oh, my parents, you know, came together and I was birthed, right? But
yeah,
but there it's almost like cosmic amnesia that takes place when you birth, right? Now, it took many years, right, for me to start making sense of all the information. And in the end, it's really remembering what my mission is, right? And
yeah,
why I came here. So the technology is a portion of the data, the knowledge that I came back with, so to speak. And it really has to do with helping humanity reclaim their original potential, right? Who
yeah,
says that we have to die at a certain age, right? Well, why is it then in, let's say, the Bhagavad Gita, or you can look at the Quran, or you can look at the Sumerian texts, or you can even look at the real Bible, right? The old previous Bible. Why is it then beings were living thousands of years? Okay. And that's something that's always stuck with me. Why is it current humans barely can make it out of their 70s, 80s? You're lucky if you're a centurion at 100, right?
yeah,
So that was huge for me because I know that we really death is erroneous. It's not really what happens, right? It's like when you die, it's like taking off your clothes and then being free, being like nude, right? But then when you
Yeah.
come back to, you birth back in, you put on a new suit or a new dress, and you're in a new outfit, right?
You're back in Earth School again.
There you go. So, I knew and I remembered why I came here, and that was really just to help, humanity, to be really in service to humanity versus service to self. And that's how the technology came about. I remember, right, as if it happened yesterday, this death experience, or this, I call it transfer of consciousness experience.
Yeah.
And if people smoke, we're able to reclaim that experience by not dying, not having to go through a traumatic, near death experience. But if they can actually reclaim and remember that experience, then it would unlock their true potential,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it all came into practicality, so to
That's
speak.
awesome. I love it. I love it. I really think it's cool to like unlock that a little bit because I want you to talk a little bit about what it does for people, how it works, because you know, I'm one of those people who I have no problem flying in a jet airplane to go to. I was in Thailand earlier this year to give a talk, and I don't know how to build an airplane, and I actually don't know how to fly an airplane, although I could learn that probably. But I have no problem flying in one, and I do it all the time. And there's lots of examples. Like I am perfectly fine if something works. I'm happy to use it. I don't need to know how to build it. So this works. You got the information, you created it.
Mhm.
What is it we're actually doing? We're adding frequencies to our field
Right.
that unlock some of that potential. Is that a, a crude way of saying it, or tell me how you describe it?
Right. You're on that, you're on the cusp, right?
Okay.
So the Rasha technology is not a healing device. It doesn't, we don't claim to heal anything. It really is a communication device, right? Based on scalar energy, based on what Nikola Tesla was able to prove back in the early 1900s. It's what Professor Dr. Konstantin Meil from Germany who was able to prove. So really it's a communication device. And we're communicating to the DNA, but not the DNA that codes for protein, the 1 to 2 to 3 strands. It's geared to communicating to the 98% of what we call the non-coding genes, right? The
What
ones
what
that,
what the traditional guys call junk DNA, which it's not, right? It
correct.
is absolutely
Yeah.
it's actually real and useful, but it's our science, our traditional science doesn't recognize it.
Correct. Right. Mainstream science doesn't. But however, you have the Russians, right, that did the research on this, the Germans, they all knew that this intronic or intron potential DNA, there was something to it. And while the Human Genome Project in the West studied, splicing the genes and all the chemical based, functions of the genes, the Russians and the Germans started to look at, what is this, this quantum supercomputer that can hold and transmit information, primarily scalar information. So that's all we're really doing, and we're transmitting these frequencies from, let's just say if Tesla were alive today, the scalar coils that we've created are based on his, 1899 patents. So they do truly access scalar energy, and we transmit not binaural beats, not base 10 frequencies, but it's a base 12, right, format. So it's a base 12 frequencies that are transmitted to the intron DNA. Right.
And that intron DNA,
Yeah.
which it's really like our cells are like antennae, right? They're basically receiving information, and they only can receive it if it's if well, first of all, you gotta clear yourself up and clear out a lot of things that are in the way of, layers of baggage, right? I call them emotional energy hairballs, whatever. In any awakening process, you gotta clean up, right? Clean up your, you know, uh, things that traumas, all the stuff that people hold in their energy field that block the antenna, that block the receiving of this stuff, right? So you can blast this stuff at someone, but if they're still, when I went and did it, I had deciding on the frequencies, you had a lot of choices of all kinds of things that you can do, and some of them were about trauma and healing and stuff. And I said, to your team, well, I feel I every time I say this, I find something else, but I feel like I've cleared up my energetic system. I don't feel like I have any of that stuff in my system anymore. I'm clear. I'm clean. I've purified. So give me like the next level stuff. I want to do expanding consciousness. I want to do bigger picture stuff. So I had like they said, well, this is a really powerful program. Not a lot of people wouldn't do this the first time, but for me, it was like, okay, I know where I am. I'm pretty clear on like my own thing. So now I'm just working on expanding my own knowledge, my own consciousness. And so I got blasted with some really powerful stuff in it. But it's you have to clear up your antennae, your cells, your body, your energetic body to receive some of this stuff.
Absolutely. Right. It's like I don't know if any of your listeners or viewers, it's like having, a dish, like a satellite dish for your TV, and let's just say you're caught in a snowstorm and the snow piles up on the actual dish. And I'm talking from experience, Smoke, because I've
Yeah.
had to, you know, get like a broom and a ladder and like clear off this like the 3 inches of
I was
snow
under an
on.
avalanche. I'm with you. I'm like, there was like a little hole like somewhere that opened up for me, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh, get me
Right.
out of here.
Right. No, you said it perfectly. You gotta, you must, let's say, be prepared. I call it like, you can just throw out the garbage or clean out the garbage. You got to clean it out before, you take in new information. So yeah, and it's everything that we do is based on, science that was hidden, right? Mainstream science calls it pseudoscience because they don't want you to realize the human being is one of the most amazing, powerful beings in this cosmos. But we've been taught we live on a small planet way out, in the universe with no one. We're it, right?
Right.
So isolated, right? But it's just really remembering that we are amazing. We're a reflection of, you know, the all oneness, right? The
Yeah.
source, God, if you will. We are a reflection of that. So, yeah, it's about reclaiming what we actually were meant to be.
Yeah,
You know.
I'm with you there, and I have a recollection of being on another realm in a fairly. I don't talk about this. I haven't talked about it on this show, but I'll just share a little snippet of being in a I would guess an elite group of, I don't know if it's rulers or very high status beings,
Hmm.
and we were debating, that humanity and Earth has gone the wrong way, and we were having this argument among ourselves. It's like a council. Think of like a Greek or Roman council in a circle. And I was of the side that was arguing strongly that humanity deserves help, deserves saving, deserves we should help them. And the other half of our group were like, no, they're not worth it. They can't overcome their animal. They're destroying themselves and each other. And as part of that debate, somehow I had to go back and become a human to show that I could do it without all my powers or whatever. That it's a strange thing to say, and I'm not, but it's real and what I remember, and so I had to go and live in trauma and do these things so that I could demonstrate to wherever that group. I don't even know where they are exactly. I don't have all the details, but I had to demonstrate that it was doable, so that our group, our would help humanity. So I believe I'm on that path, but.
You are. And
Yeah.
it's amazing that you remember that because that is actually what happened.
Yeah.
You are part of that council. So, uh,
Yeah.
bravo for remembering, that. I mean, that's for you to share that. First of all, I'm honored that you shared that. And most of your viewers and listeners may just chalk it up to, an experience and whatever state, right? But I know from feel sense, the energy behind your words, that everything that you just shared is what you actually experienced. So, that's a very high council transmission that you just shared with everyone. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. There's not, I don't, there's literally almost no one I ever talk about this, and certainly not on the show, but
Yeah.
it's a thing. So it felt like the time to do it. So
Yeah, I know, because I was on that council and I was probably the one saying, humanity is just really screwing things up. So ergo, I'm here,
yeah,
and we're here together,
yeah,
full circle.
yeah.
So,
And I think there's a lot of us that just don't realize it.
uh-huh. Amazing.
Yeah, and this is my first incarnation on this planet.
Hmm. Amazing.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So. So there's that. So I think
Yeah,
it's all cool. I love it. I think it's the heaven on earth. This is the greatest opportunity for any consciousness. It's purgatory. So we have the lowest of the low. We have, people living at the lowest base of consciousness where they're animalistic. They aren't able to think for themselves. They're just reactionary. They're living in the worst scenarios possible, a hell on earth, if you will. And we have the ability to experience the Buddha mind, to go all the way up to full consciousness, universal consciousness within this physical realm. It's a very unique um, possibility, and of course, most people live their lives and never realize it. But I think this is a time where more and more people are getting glimpses of it, getting little pieces of it, getting things, and we're piecing together this information, which is why it's so important for these conversations because, you know, uh, by day I'm a normie. I do M&A. Rob. I sell companies. I'm in business still, traveling around the world helping CEOs and stuff. And, if you just looked at me when I'm out there talking to people, you'd say, oh, that's just a really, good business person who's, got a good heart and is, aligned. And yet, it's actually a much bigger thing. That's one of the robes I wear, and I do that, and it enables me to go help and reach a lot of people, because I have the freedom to do that.
absolutely. And that's a massive commission for you, meaning, responsibility. When I say commission, that's a huge responsibility that you've accepted to do that. And, you do an amazing work to humanity, for humanity. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. It's look, it's kind of up to each of us to do our own work internally so that we can be able to do these things and help others. But it's also kind of part of the mission is like find each other, like who else is on this journey that's realized it, and how do we help each other? So like that's a little bit of this conversation. You and I were rapping right away, and I'm like, you got to come on my show, and you're like, okay, and I'm like, it sounds good, but you just know, right?
Absolutely. It's great to let's say reconnect, right? And I know that there are others out there with perhaps similar, experiences as you and I. And, you know, I'm trusting that perhaps this, you know, podcast episode will spark their memory, right? Spark some
Yeah.
type of remembrance, right?
Yeah,
So,
because a lot of our problem, in my experience, was doubting. Doubting, is it real? Like, and what I know is this actually? Is this something I'm just am I making this up? But
mhm,
it's real, and I think that's where a lot of normies or just people living their lives
mhm,
have experiences. Everyone has had some mystical experiences in their lives, whether they were children or not. They may have blotted out, or they may have attributed it to something like, oh, I don't know what that was, so I just buried it. I forgot about it. But everyone has some level of these experiences. It's just recognizing and knowing that it's actually all real. It's all real. And we may be perceiving things that are beyond explanation in our current society, and we attribute it to like, oh, I'm just not going to talk about that. So one reason I started this podcast was simply to give permission. I'm YPO guy. I'm in business. I've done all this stuff. I got an MBA. I went to Cornell. I did all this, normie stuff, right? And yet I'm here talking to you about this higher knowledge, and hopefully that helps others recognize, a, don't doubt. Like if you experience something, or if you think you're getting information, or you're sensing something greater, lean into it. Don't ignore it, and just don't be afraid. I mean, don't be afraid to talk about it. I think there were times when talking about anything like this, you would be persecuted, or the church would burn you up at the stake or whatever. But like there's lots of times in history where you could get attacked for this stuff, and even today, that's probably true in some ways. But I think today it's out there, and it's getting out there more and more.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Smoke. And I feel that, podcasts like yours, and mine is really about transmitting our experiences, to others that hopefully will catch on to it and, experience, what we experience, right? Because in
Yeah,
the end, no one's immune to, the transfer of consciousness experience. Everybody that's listening to your show and watching this is going to, whether they like it or not, experience their true nature, right? When
yeah,
they do that transfer of consciousness experience or the death experience. And really, it's individuals like you that are helping, those people prepare. No one wants to, we weren't taught, you know, as children or growing up, oh, you got to prepare for death. But why is it then you have certain Eastern traditions, and some Westerns, you have the Vikings and the Nords, they, as well as the Eastern groups, they celebrated death. They
yeah,
prepared for that transition, because I feel it is the greatest journey that you will ever take, right?
yep,
We spend so much time making plans, booking our hotels and our flights, and we know what the agenda is when we go to certain places, what our schedule is. It's ludicrous to think that we don't even prepare for the greatest journey, which is the death experience.
yeah.
And people are not ready for it.
No, and there's consequences, right? So karma's real. The whole universe is built on our thoughts, actions, who we it's the energetic makeup of who we are at any given moment is the cumulative karma. And I don't know what the right, I'll use energy because that's how I think about it, but energetically, like attracts like. You go where you are. So whatever level we've gotten to in terms of our level of consciousness we're going to go to that realm, and then we're going to have to, if there's lessons that we were sent here to learn, there's things that we're supposed to unlock that we didn't do, we've made choices for self instead of the all, or that are you could go down a list, but you can call them evil, or you can just call them ignorant, as the Buddha did. But either way, they are choices that are for the self against the all. And by the way, for the all is not against the self. We are part of the all. So, doing right by yourself and the all is what the all is. It's not a either or. It's not like, oh, I have to, you know suffer to do something for the all. No, it's not that. It's let's lift up humanity. Let's lift up the world. Let's lift up nature. Let's do the right thing. So if we're doing that, we're going to learn and grow and we're going to go there. And if we do the other way, and there's plenty of that we see, it just turn on the news, look at the internet, look at like the political world, and there you can see many people making choices for the self and not for the all. And they get to it's a karmically perfect world. There's no one gets out like free. Like you don't like get to do something, take advantage of people, you know, uh, get power in this realm. You might have a great run for a little while, but either it's going to catch up to you now in this realm, or like, as soon as you're dead, you're going to get to experience the opposite side of what you did to someone.
Oh, yes. Yes. And most people aren't taught that, Smoke, you
No.
know? There is that law of choice and consequence, right? And people seem to have either forgotten or they just weren't taught that, right? And
Yeah.
they just go throughout life, you know, they want to be successful, they want to have all this, blah, 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 and for what? Because you're not going to be able to take it with you. All the
Nope.
money in your bank account, every single thing that you've accumulated in this 3D life, you aren't taking with you.
Yep. Except for what you experienced when you were hovering above your body, your
Mm.
consciousness.
Yep,
So what you have accumulated in your energetic field is what goes with you,
1,000%.
good or
Well said.
bad.
Yeah, exactly. Good or bad. You're taking that with you, right? Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
I love this is awesome. All right, so let me pivot and just ask you a couple questions about two topics that I know are important for you that are part of your journey. One is uh, you're an MMA coach. You have a gym. You have tell me a little bit about that track of your world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's really Krav Maga, right? Which is
Krav
which
Maga.
is which is my base, which is an Israeli type of self-defense, but I've let's just say made it more let's say expandable to people, and I teach, primarily females and children's and males too on certain situations, and how to, go home to your families, right? It's about, protecting yourself and coming home to your loved ones. That's really, what I teach. And in that, I was able to be able to partner with, bare knuckle fighting championships, which is a, it's an old school fighting system that they did, I think back in the UK, right? Bare
Okay.
knuckle. So yeah, and I train with certain champions, primarily a female champion, Christine Ferea. She's she's a force, and yeah, and that's pretty much body, mind, and spirit. So
Yeah.
that's the body part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and
but
you
your
and you
mind.
know you were a wrestler, right, or something
Yeah, I
like
was
that
right. Yeah, a
for
long time
Cornell.
ago. But
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
for sure. But I mean, your mind is so much a part of your ability to stay present and perform in any kind of situation. Anybody who's an athlete, anybody that's done anything physically hard knows that the mind is the biggest part of it, right? So it's both, but
Absolutely.
also physical training and all the stuff, right? I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally you're catching me at the end of my 72-hour fast
Okay.
that I just did because I felt like I wanted a little reset and just
Yep.
wanted to cleanse a little bit. And and I'm like, oh, I used to do this for wrestling back in the day when I was cutting weight. It was, it's actually no big deal. And
Right.
people think like that's hard. It's not hard at all if you decide you want to do it, right? It's like when I quit drinking, I 40 years of heavy drinking, and when I went through this experience, I one day I had an experience, and I said I had a big conversation with myself, higher self, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or it was like something like, do you, I love myself. Well, if you love yourself, why are you poisoning yourself? And I'm like, oh, you're right. And then I stopped, and I never had another drink, and it just fell away. This fast has been it not even uncomfortable really. It's just been like, okay, I'm just doing that, and I could keep going. I don't need to stop right now, but I set a objective. I'm going to do 72 hours and do a reset, and I'll probably do it again and go longer next time. But it's feels good.
So yeah, and most people, you know, hopefully when they re-listen to this and rewatch this, what you just talked about is so important, as we, let's just say, prepare for life after Earth. Because what you're talking about, Smoke, is something that you've had since your college days with wrestling and weight cutting, and that's discipline,
Yeah.
right? The discipline to, and it's all here. It's all right here, right?
Yep.
And if people just, get disciplined, whatever it is, whether you want to be successful, you want to be spiritual, you want to, whatever it is, be disciplined, right? And that takes, I mean, most people aren't, right? So what you're sharing about your 72-hour fast, most people think, oh my God, that's crazy. I can't do that. No, it's because they're not disciplined, but it's absolutely doable. And you just
Yeah.
proved it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's freedom. So there's a in academic circles, in certain circles, there's like, is there real free will, whatever. There is less or more free will depending on your level of consciousness. So if your consciousness is at a low level and you're living in shame, anger, guilt, whatever, like all the human emotions that we all experience, but we have to transcend to get to higher levels, then you are reactionary, you're mechanical, you're animalistic, you pretty much don't have a choice because you're going to be responding to stimuli, whatever that stimuli might be. You're going to respond without a gap. And as we raise our level of consciousness, we have the ability to create a gap between stimuli and response. And that gap is free will. It gives you the choice. Now, it's not ultimate free will. I can't fly up to that mountain because I just decided to, probably because I haven't convinced myself how to do that yet. But you can't do that. I can't do that today. But I can, there's a range of options that expand as we expand our consciousness.
1,000%. Really. I mean, you know, it's amazing how you can simplify that and transmit that information. Because that's one thing I've always, you know, I found challenging for myself is, I can speak the the physics and the science, and when I
Yes,
start
I
talking,
noticed.
is people just like, what the heck are you talking about? But you say it so eloquently and so simplistic that I'm learning from you, right? So it's amazing. It's just a
Well,
great.
thank you. Yeah, that is like, so I do have a superpower of a sort, which is I've always been able to kind of assimilate a bunch of information and then make it understandable to a bigger, wider audience.
Correct.
So that's a little bit what this show is like. I'm not inventing a new thing or creating a machine to do something, but I can certainly help people contextualize it in a way that might resonate with a wider audience. And
Yes.
so that's probably part of my mission, is part of my role, is to help translate some of this stuff that not everybody's going to read the Upanishads or
Right.
or all the lectures of Meister Eckhart. But I understand what he was talking about. The soul's ground is where you touch God, where you touch source, infinity. It's where Christ consciousness comes from. It's the base where we're connected as humans to that higher realm. And that's what Meister Eckhart was talking about. In
Yes.
simple terms.
Yes. Yeah. That whole series.
Yeah. Um, well, all right. So MMA, and then let's tell us a little bit about your foundation. I know it's important to you. Your mom is the chairperson. You are the chief medical. In I read the website.
President.
Yeah,
Yeah.
president.
Yeah. So
And
the
so what are you guys trying to do there?
right. So the foundation's called the GC Rivera Foundation, and it's named after my mom's mom, my grandmother, right, Genevieve Castro Rivera, and it's really about giving back to the poorest of the poor on the planet, right? And so my mom, she's a surgeon, and she takes her surgical group, and we do major and minor surgery, right, into the poorest of the poor villages in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
And I take a group of our integrative doctors and nurses, and we actually take a look at and we help the autistic children and children that with special needs. And we utilize the RASHA, right? So for the past 9 years, we've been going to the Philippines, and hopefully we're going to branch out to other countries, but that's where we're, because when you go there, you got to get approval from the government, blah, 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 right? So it's easy for us to go to get that
Yeah.
approval. So we've just, it's just worked. And we go to different locations around the Philippines, right? And most people will say, well, hey, Jerry, well, I mean, I get it. Your mom does major and minor surgery and they can do that within a week, but what can you do in 1 week to children with autism or, special needs, blind, right, deaf?
Yeah.
And the thing here is, with the Rasha, right, we take the Rasha and we actually affect their consciousness, right, in a positive way, meaning if we can spark, because it is a misconception that children on the spectrum, even children with Down syndrome or children that have special needs or blind and deaf, are not all there, meaning they're not bright. I can tell you that's erroneous. These children are some of the brightest
Yeah.
beings, the most loving, caring beings, and may not be able to speak, Smoke, but they're conscious. You can see it in their eyes. They
Yeah.
know exactly what's going on. They just, there's that disconnect, right?
Yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
right? So that's what we do
Yeah.
with the integrative team. Smoke is for 5 to 7 days. We see, usually about 500 kids. We bring, therapists, speech, motor skills. We play with them, but the whole the crux is the Rasha, and
Yeah.
specifically the new Rasha headphones, which I had around here, but
Yeah. I gotta work. I gotta get some of those. That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, look, that's the thing. Like I became aware of is that we and the Buddha. You can go by the Buddha's teaching or anyone else, but who's at a high level, and you recognize that we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we're not our mind, we're not our body. We're something greater, and we have a mind, we have a body, we have and we're here for a reason to use it, and but they're tools. And some of these people who are disadvantaged with autism or some other ailments or things, they're still soul entities that are who they really are, their essence. And they may have some of the, these senses are in some ways filters, right? We're only perceiving certain things, and their filters are a little bit different than what we call the norm or the bell curve of where people are. And so they're perceiving things differently, and they're able to process it differently, and they're able to communicate differently. But doesn't mean that they're not super highly conscious. They're just not able to function in this realm, in this existence, the same way.
Absolutely, right. And you know, after dealing with thousands and thousands and seeing these children, there's that shift and that spark in their eyes that you notice when they get turned back on, right?
Yeah,
Meaning they're just, oh, okay, they've been activated, right? And
yeah,
that's what we really, are doing as far as the integrative part of the
yeah,
mission, right? And
yeah.
yeah, and we're
That's awesome.
yeah.
So one of the things that I'm, been active in is we formed a group called Dignity Moves to try to address the unsheltered homeless, really in California, during COVID. And in that process, we've now, we're housed thousands of people, and we've built villages, little Dignity Moves villages in all parts of California, and we've, been really good at cost effective, doing it quickly. And the idea is like getting someone off the street quickly and getting them to, like, you can't even start treatment or job training or getting your head straight until you like had a good night's sleep with a door that locks. You can take a shower, you get some basic stuff, and you kind of create a base. And the spark in the eyes of some of these homeless people when they know that like there's some random people like us who like care and are doing this, and they have a home, they have a place to call home, they have a door to lock, and we've seen just unbelievable bounce backs from people. Not everybody. There's some people are, have severe mental problems and need a lot more help, but we get a lot of people that are able to go back to their families or go back to a more permanent independent living, but it's because they had a little breather. But it's that spark of consciousness that gets reactivated, and that happens. One of my guests, uh, Liv Fish, she's got a great new book coming out, and she calls it, she says, and I totally agree with this, humans are the medicine. So as we heal ourselves, as we improve our own consciousness and we get our field right, um, being exposed to people that have healed is healing to others. So, part of what you're
Absolutely.
doing is the Rasha, and I'm sure that's helping. But part of it is you guys care. You're there taking the time and effort to be there and give them love. And that is healing in and of itself.
Absolutely. And your previous guess is 1000% correct, right? When you have a being, whether it's a child, a woman, or man, and that has reached a certain level of awareness and consciousness, the energy that emanates off of being like that is healing. It is the authentic organic medicine, 1000%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hats off to your mom and to all the people involved in that. And if I can be helpful to you guys in that, I'm happy to be helpful in whatever way it makes sense. But it sounds like you're doing great, great work there.
Yeah, you're always welcome to join us.
Be fun. Be a fun
Yeah,
adventure. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I wonder I wonder if we could bring the Rasha to some of the homeless, and if that what that would look like. But we could brainstorm around that. That might be kind of cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take the headphones and we just,
Yeah.
yeah, for a
Yeah.
certain amount of days. Why not?
Yeah. No, it might be a good experiment to see if we can help some people there.
Let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah.
You just let me
All
know
right.
when. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Jerry, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd love to. There's so much stuff that and there's so much stuff in your work and who you are that I think we could have a lot more conversations. So I'd love to put a placeholder and invite you back. But
Oh, absolutely.
this has been
Anytime.
I think, a really cool conversation. I'm sure our audience will get some nuggets of information, and this transmission, as you say, is the energetic transmission. It's not even so much the conversation, but what we're talking about is real, and I think it'll help a lot of people.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, Smoke. And thanks to all your listeners and viewers for
Awesome.
watching.